Hey friends, Donovan here with Trumpet Thoughts and sponsored by Ernie Williams Music. Sponsored by the day job. I guess we're all sponsored by our jobs one way or another, right? Except for I own my job. So like that's always nice, you know. Except for I'm responsible for managing myself and I'm a very tough employee to manage. Sarge, buddy, get up here. Sarge is out of control as usual. Come here, buddy. You want to come make a camera appearance? Come here, bud. You want to come over this side? Just my Sargy boy. House cleaner showed up today, so he was letting them know he's aware of their presence. Okay, that's not the point of this video. Let's get back to it. So, in a recent video, I was sharing with you the idea of the mouthpiece diameter being a really important component based on the register you intend to play on the trumpet. And I was commenting in that I think a lot of people tend to focus a lot on cup depth primarily. I think the conventional wisdom is find a diameter you like and then just adjust the cup depth. And to a degree that works, to be clear. Like I'm not saying like that doesn't work at all. That to a degree that definitely works. And for certain types of things, I think that makes a lot of sense. If you're a highly specialized player and like just moving rims is like just way too disastrous for you, then it might not work. But essentially what we're doing when we change the cup depth, for example, but leave the rim the same, all we're doing is changing the internal volume of the mouthpiece, right? So that's what we're doing. And we can change that volume by either changing the cup depth or we can change the overall volume by making the diameter smaller, or we could do some combination of both. And there's times where we want to be able to play in the upper register, for example, where we need it to be easy, we need to have good endurance and stuff like that, but we don't want to have that brightness of sound that we would get with a shallow mouthpiece. For example, if you're playing like the piccolo trumpet, I know some people will use like a 14A Schilke mouthpiece on that, and some people do it and sound wonderful. So, I mean, if you sound great, like, I don't know why you're watching this, who cares? But for myself, I find those mouthpieces just too shallow to do that, even with the large backbore, like a 14A 4X backbore. When I play piccolo on that, even trying to use like slower air, I just have to play so relaxed and easy. It's just too difficult to switch over to, especially if I'm just like as a commercial player. Sometimes like I get the music and I look at it and go, oh, I need a pick. And like, it's not like I've been practicing pick for weeks ready for this recital. It's like, I got to grab a pick and show up to this gig. So I need something I can quickly switch over to. And so I find like a C cup works better, but I need that narrower diameter. That's really, really important. And so now there may be times like if you're playing lead trumpet in a big band, you will want both the narrow diameter because that's the tessitura you're going to be in, but you also want a shallow cup because you want that sizzle and you want that efficiency. And as we increase the volume, I am dropping like so much knowledge in this one video. As you increase the volume of inside that cup, what you're doing is you're increasing the workload that's required for compression. You're reducing the speed of the air, the compression of the air that's coming out of your body by doing that. It's why like the sound is not as bright and piercing and stuff like that. As we make that internal volume smaller, we're increasing the compression and the resistance. Maybe resistance is a better word. We're increasing the resistance of that mouthpiece, making it easier to play those upper register and those high notes. So as we increase the volume, we're decreasing the resistance, which can make it harder to play high notes, and but maybe easier to play loud or big. And as we increase the resistance by making the volume smaller, we are then giving ourselves something to like push against. It might be hard to play loud, but we have a sound that cuts and projects. So does that make sense? Okay, so I'm really into this idea of this diameter. Now, depending on the range that you're going to be playing for any particular gig, I think that diameter is super important. With using TCE, as I've mentioned many times in the past, it's allowed me to play smaller diameters than I used to be able to play. And what I found that is if I go too small in the diameter, I have a hard time with getting notes to reliably speak as we get to the very, very bottom of the staff and below. So I would say maybe like starting at maybe like first line E and then definitely like getting into low C and below that. It can be hard for me to get notes to speak down there quickly and reliably without getting that kind of sound, right? And for me, that means like if I'm playing something around the size of maybe like a Bach 15 or something like that, going that small, it can be hard to do that. Now, the reality is in most of my playing, I'm usually playing like first first trumpet and like in a couple of like wind ensembles I play in and stuff like that. I don't play a lot of low C's. Like, it's just not an important part of my playing. So the majority of the time, I'm playing at the top part of the staff and above the staff. That's 80-90% of my playing, probably. So playing that 15C mouthpiece works out just fine for me, without really any consequences or any negative problems. And then I'm just changing the cup depth based on the tone I want. So if I want like a thicker sound and I'm still playing in that, like the upper part of my staff there, I can use a B cup. Or if I want a little more brilliance to it, I can add a C cup. Or D cup if I want it to be even a little more efficient and add a little bit more brilliance on top of that. And then beyond that, you start getting like lead cups and stuff like that. So that's kind of how all that works. What I thought I would do today is just, in the previous video, I used a bass guitar to kind of show you how this works in action. And I thought I just might try that again, and this time actually take the time to actually run it through the amplifier so you can actually hear it better. And this kind of gives you an idea of what I'm talking about. So if we look at the bass guitar strings, you can see, and you can use a regular guitar for this. I have a bass handy, so I grabbed it. But you can see like this string here is thinner than this string and this string and this string. And because of the number of frets in here, for this example, I can only use these bottom 4 strings, these strings down here. And so as the strings get thicker, I'm going to play the same pitch. And as the strings get thicker, I want you to see if you can hear the difference in the tonal quality. So there's a concert G on the G string. Hear how there's fewer high overtones and more lower overtones. Even more, now it's like almost like dark and almost dull sounding. And that's very dark and dull sounding. Hear that difference in sound? Some of you may be saying, well, yeah, but you're playing an open string and comparing it to the rest. It really doesn't matter. I could fret it. So it's the same. It serves the same purpose, which I think is kind of interesting. And then as a further analogy to show you is like, okay, well, what if we're trying to play like this note down here, but we want to play it with this small diameter string? Can we do that? Of course you can do that. What happens to the tone though? You can totally do it. It is a little brighter sounding, just like as we predicted. We're in the same frequency here. It's brighter sounding, but the string itself has way less tension. It's almost like floppy. And if you're not careful, it can easily rattle against the fretboard. So if you were mainly playing in this low register, you would never take this gauge of string and just detune it down to play there if this is where you're mostly at. Now on the bass guitar, we have the good fortune of having all these different gauge of strings, and depending on the register we're playing in, we've got the appropriate string. Wouldn't it be cool if on trumpet, as we were changing a register, our mouthpiece could, maybe someday with nanotechnology we'll have that, where the diameter could change as we were ascending. God, that would be like super helpful. Maybe that's a possible thing for someone to invent. But the diameter of the string is and in this case, talking about the trumpet, is a really, really important consideration to think about. And so if you're playing mostly in that upper tessitura, you play first trumpet, and so you're on average playing, A to C in the staff, up to A to high C or above, really consider a smaller diameter mouthpiece. And honestly, I think, and again, this will be controversial, I think most people should be playing something around a Bach 7. Probably not the Bach, I don't like that mouthpiece that much, but an AR Resonance MS would be great. I love the AR Resonance mouthpieces. A Lotus 7 would be great. And I think for most people that need to be able to do, if you're what I would consider a commercial player, and again, commercial just meaning you're going to play all kinds of stuff. You could play in musicals, you could play in wind ensembles, you could play in brass quintets, you could play in big bands, you could play dance, like pop bands, whatever. If you're that kind of player, Having a 7, which is not a small mouthpiece, it's actually a middle of the road mouthpiece, is way more versatile and makes way more sense, and it'll get you where you need to be in your playing, range wise and register and endurance wise. And then if you get into something that's more specialty, where you really need a lot more low range, then maybe going up to a 3 or something larger makes sense. Also, if you find yourself just playing lots of lead trumpet and like you're just pounding out like high note lead trumpets, or you're in a electronic rock group where you're playing lots of high notes, maybe playing something smaller than a 7, like a 10.5 or 12 or 15 might make more sense. And then adjust the cups also based on the tone that you want. So shallower cup for more higher overtones and more and that sound, that more brilliant cutting kind of sound, and then deeper cups when you want more of that ooh gooey kind of sound to it, and then a C cup when you want sort of a balance between the two. Does that make sense? Okay, give that a shot and see what you think, and let me know in the comments. Do you agree with me? Disagree? If you think I'm wrong, let me know. Thanks. Bye.